Hi there.
Hi there.
Welcome back to the channel. Today in our food security report, we wanted to talk about food security and food insecurity that's happening in Australia. And this is in relation to a very recent interview that we heard. And the interview was the media interviewed Richard Forbes, who's the Chief Executive of the Independent Food Distributors Australia. And he was asking for the government to consider stabilising food prices, very concerned about the increase in food that's happening and the cost of living for Australians, and also asking the government to look at implementing a national food security plan. A national food security plan, which is really interesting because we recently did an interview where we were talking about an Australian food minister and a real focus on our food security. So there was quite a few interesting points that Richard identified in his interview, wasn't there, Michael?
There was, but it's interesting because 6 months ago we talked about the University of Melbourne. That they had a couple of researchers there, and they called for the same thing, an independent Australian food minister. So they were just as concerned as what Richard Forbes is all about food security for Australia today and in the future. But some of the points Richard made were he's very concerned with the rapid rises in the price of food. He's concerned with climatic events. For instance, we've had a lot of weather variability. In Australia, we've had 11 catastrophic weather events in the last 3 years.
Bushfires, floods,
all sorts of things have been happening in Australia. It's been amazing the last 3 years. He cited worker shortages. We've got 170,000 people we need in the agricultural sector from paddock to plate in every area. So that's impacting the supply chains. He's put out a major warning to the government. As far as he's concerned, it really needs to be addressed pretty urgently. He mentioned there's been $25 billion on recovery projects in Australia, mainly around some of the things that have happened with the climate, with weather events. But they've only put 2% of that into looking at resilience within the food chains themselves. So very little is actually based on solutions. It's more just trying to sort of fix up the problems that have happened for various reasons. And he said we need an urgent national food security plan that really looks at risk mitigation strategies. And so that's another point where someone's very concerned by it. All these things are price rises, worker shortages, weather events, all these things are impacting on our ability to feed ourselves. And when we fast forward that maybe another month, 6 months, 12 months, where are we going to be then? And he's saying we need to be starting to address these issues today. That's the second person within 6 months in Australia that we have to look at it.
Second organisation that's identified this as an issue, and I'm sure there's plenty of others out there as well. And he was saying with this national food security plan that this would be the first time in Australia that we would be looking at all of the threats and the factors that impact on our food security. So it's certainly a worthwhile activity to do that. And it is interesting because food insecurity in Australia is increasing. The Food Bank Australia recently released their latest hunger report, and they release these reports. I think it's once a year that they do that. And the latest report is really quite concerning, for Australians here. And I'm just scrolling through very quickly, having a look at this.
There's some quite staggering stats in this that, you think like a place like Australia, we'd be totally food secure and no one would be hungry and all that. But
all the land we've got,
all the human resources, the financial resources, and yet more and more people are going hungry every day.
So the aim of the Food Bank Hunger Report was to uncover the extent of food insecurity in Australia. So some people might be experiencing a one-off and minor levels of food insecurity, and other households might be experiencing it quite severely and an ongoing issue. But something that they found in their report was that in the past 12 months, over 2 million Australian households, that's 21% of the households that they surveyed, said that they were experiencing severe food insecurity. And what they assess as being severe food insecurity is households that are running out of food, that they can't access more food because of their financial limitations, so they might have to wait till next pay week or whatever. And at worst, they were finding that households were going entire days without eating food at all. And the tragic thing is a lot of these households have children and vulnerable people.
Yes, and the Food Bank report says that 64% of people that talked about this quoted price rises as being the number one concern, just the cost of living expenses, not just in terms of actually buying food, which is going up rapidly, but everything else, power, fuel, everything else is going up all at the same time, and it's putting a lot of pressure on households to be able to feed themselves and their children.
And it is. I mean, in Australia, our power bills are going up. Our grocery bills, people that are buying food from supermarkets. Remember when the lettuces went up to $10 each to get a lettuce? And then not only are things going up in price, but there's a lot of shortages of certain things. I mean, even here in Tasmania, the potato shortage.
Yes, well, we've got at the moment in Tasmania, which is amazing to think that we've got no potatoes in the supermarkets. Tasmania is one of Australia's, major suppliers of potatoes. And lo and behold, because of weather events, they've been wiped out this year again, and there's no no potatoes in the supermarkets at all at the moment.
Or they're getting them and then they're very expensive and too expensive for people to buy. But I've been to our local shops, I think on 7 occasions over the past few months, and there's been no potatoes.
Yes, and our local potato grower here down the road from us, he's about 20 kilometres down the road. He's lost 2,000 tonnes of potatoes this year alone, and most of those are seed potatoes. So not only are there less potatoes to eat, and obviously in the shops, but there's going to be a lot less seed potatoes to grow for people next year. So this is an ongoing situation. We've had 2 really bad years for potatoes in a row, and these are some of the things that we need to mitigate against.
No, it's a real issue, and it's not getting better, and we're not imagining it, because out of the people that were surveyed, 23% of those said that compared to last year, their household bill, they were spending more on food. So, we know for a fact that things are definitely going up.
And this is a global thing. I mean, anyone listening from outside of Australia, you guys know the same thing, whether you live in Europe, North America, Africa, parts of Asia. We know people in Asia that we're helping out with at the moment, and they're saying exactly the same thing. Eggs are going up, rice is going up. So this is the global, not just Australia, this is a global thing that's happening at the moment.
Yeah. And look, when I look at these reports, and I think, that the organisations like Food Bank do an absolutely amazing job. They're like the middleman, they're working with supermarkets and distributors and wholesalers, and they're getting excess produce, and then they're getting it to charities who can then give it to people and help them out, and that's absolutely amazing. I think the Australian Distributors Organisation wanting to see a national strategic plan on food security is really, really good. But I suppose my question is, what is the long-term plan? Because a lot of organisations are talking about food relief, talking about plans, but what is the long-term plan that we're going to see to make us more food secure in Australia?
And I think we've really got to get away from the fact that the government's going to feed us. I mean, it's great they help out, and it's great that they have strategies. It's great that other people say the government should have strategies, but oftentimes it doesn't happen. And if we're waiting for a white knight to come in and feed us and help us out, it might not happen. So we need to look at strategies that involve on a personal level, on a community level, and growing a lot more of our own food.
Yep. And that reminds me of our video that we did about will Australia get a dedicated food minister? And remember we said you and I are the food ministers
in our household,
of our homestead, and you had your wish list, which I'll actually put up on the screen. But you did talk a lot about national food security.
We did, yes.
And local food security, didn't you? Sort of not having something sort of so much Australia-wide, but down to more the local level.
Absolutely, but we picked 25 cauliflowers this morning. Sonny's put a few pictures up of some of our crops at the moment, and we're not waiting for someone to feed us. We're taking like a pro-positive stance, and we're actually trying to be far more self-sufficient in feeding ourselves, and that gives us the ability to feed other people, to be able to give some of those cauliflowers away, and things like that. So we really need to start focusing on personal food security, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So some of the solutions that, I think we've sort of looked at and we've been exploring is certainly growing our own food, being involved in community gardens. Not everyone's got land. Local groups, doing all that seed saving, which you'll see a lot of our videos, we're just constantly saving seed and being able to give seed away to other people. And just really strengthening the food availability, nutritious, accessible food at a local level.
And I think it comes back to the old saying, you know, give a man a fish, he has food for the day. Teach a man how to fish, he has food forever. It's great that we have the ability to be able to meet emergency situations and give food away, but if we're going to have long-term solutions to food insecurity, we really need to be growing food at an individual and a local level.
Yeah. And if you know, like I said, people don't have land, there's plenty of organisations that
share farming and things like that.
Share farming, sharing resources, sharing time, expertise, all that. You don't have to do it on your own. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll put a picture up on some of the things that we're doing. And as Michael said, we've got a bumper crop of cauliflowers today that we've harvested. You know, we'll process some of those, give some away, and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think a national food security plan is really good, but even more so is a local personal one.
Food security plan, yep.
All right, well, that's it from us.
Catch you next time. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.